Hey, Peter, you ever notice that Quark seems to land a lot of ladies around here?
Well, it seems easy when you can contractually require your Dabo girls to sleep with you.
No, I mean willing women.
Yeah, funny how wealthy becomes an attractive in places where money matters.
Come on, the man has legit game.
That's bullshit, Lieutenant. You name me 3.
Well, there was that tall freighter captain. He clearly climbed that Mount Everest.
Oh, yeah, that bird lady. All right, yeah, I'll give you that.
Then there was the Bajoran femme fatale with the chemist husband, for which he was clearly getting side action.
Oh, you mean the scandalous bitch who tried to kill him? Okay, 2.
And then there was the Ferengi lady that practically threw herself at him.
Oh, Pell, if only you could have been a reoccurring character.
And now he's making out with the Cardassian professor hottie. Hell, even Vash and Dax give him ear hand jobs now and again. He has like an unlimited level of Riz.
You are a Starfleet officer, Joe. You do not say Riz. But I see your point. I guess it makes sense.
Whoa. How does it make sense? The man has a thresher maw of a face and robs everyone he knows.
Hey, must be that 69th rule of acquisition. Chicks love a bad boy with confidence.
Our local bartender is once again looking for love in all the wrong places here on V'ger Please, a vile visit to Bajor. My name is Joseph.
Ambushed at the airlock. It's me, your co-host, Peter.
Peter, what episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine did we watch this fine week?
Season 2, episode 18, Profit and Loss, classic Ferengi titling there.
Oh, yes.
First aired March 20th, 1994. Written by, what's this a porn name?
Flip Kobler.
Flip Cobbler and Cindy Marcus. And directed by Robert Weimer. In Universe Date 2370.
So there's a couple spots here where there's a unforgivable lack of spackle to explain certain actions that some characters take, or at least the consequences of those actions, and we'll get to that.
Oh yeah,
but I love this episode as a Quark episode. Apparently, Ira Steva Bear didn't like it. I don't understand why. Like, if as a opportunity for him to, I'm sorry, it's Michael Piller who talked shit about this as well in the Memory Alpha. Actually, both of them. Fuck. Well, both of them are wrong. This is great. This is great Quark content. Give me more.
Go through Michael Piller's favorite episodes, and I'm sure we can find some things to shit on there. Maybe they're just both like really racist against Ferengi, and they are unwilling to accept that a Ferengi could show true love and act altruistically in any capacity.
I mean, that's what makes Quark a protagonist. I mean, like, it's the fact that he does things that are altruistic, despite the fact that it's actually a kind of against his society's general rules, is why you want to root for him. And having a episode where you see more and more as to why he's stuck in the ass end of space running a bar like this, and what his personality is like, that he's, this savage criminal capitalist, yet he just is, he's got a soft heart. Can't help himself.
Out there at Wormhole Junction.
Yeah.
Tending a bar.
This is great Quark content. It's great Garak content. And
the Garak part, and I think that's what we're going to be harping on at the end of this. It's great exposure, and I'm happy to see him. The end kind of falls apart a little bit. But overall, it's a good world builder, too, because we've been learning more and more about Cardassia and the relationship between the military government and the civilian government, and the steps that each side seems willing to take to wrestle control of the future of Cardassia from the other. So the last time we really touched on this was Orphans, I believe it was called, right?
Yeah, it was and it was a Garak episode. The
In
one
that
with the
one, there
actually, it
was
was just called Cardassians. I think was all that was
whatever.
called. But it was with the orphan kid that the Bajorans were raising.
And ultimately, there was a civilian leadership figure who had been able to twist Gul Dukat's arm into leaving Bajor. And that guy was going up for an election or something that could have further compromised Dukat's power. So Dukat triggered this thing to throw mud in the guy's face, right?
Yeah, it was all an internal Cardassian political conflict that was playing out in miniature.
So here we are as we pick up with a Cardassian shuttle limping its ass over to the local Deep Sheets 9.
got
all
some
banged up.
got some oopsies on its hull. Got some problems.
It's all banged up, like many shuttlecraft that come limping along. And they saw on Yelp that the Dummy Federation post-scarcity utopia offers free repairs. You go, all right, there's warp speed, there's transporters, there's replicators, there's the holodeck. There is nothing more far out scientific fiction, unbelievable that you're going to find than humanity's willingness to be the good guys and just do things for free. You're telling me they're going to fix your broken air conditioner? They're going to
All you gotta
replace
do is pull this into the station and they'll just fix it for you. That's how
Yeah.
it works.
Hey, I've been busy getting attacked. Can you please fix my shot up car?
It is interesting that they could have a subplot where every broke ass, space gray market criminal shows up with their space hoopties and they keep fixing them over and over again.
Sight unseen. I mean, it's just Deep Sheets Spray and Pray 9. No, what was it?
Yeah, it's less Deep Sheets 9, more spay and pray. Yeah.
Was that what it was called in Grand Theft Auto?
Yes, it was.
Pay and spray.
Yes.
Just get in there, change the color, and knock that 5-star Gamma Quadrant rating off.
So the inhabitants of this shuttle are 3 Cardassians. One of them is Natima Lang, Professor Lang, who's really the key character, and then 2 people in the background that don't matter very much, named Recklin and Hogue, younger Cardassians. Professor Lang is very generously designed in terms of her makeup, hair, and costuming to be very attractive. As relative to other Cardassians, it's tough to make that gray scaly makeup look, good. But it's clearly they're making her a romantic focus. And sure enough, we find out shortly after they are on the station when Quark encounters her that those 2 were deeply involved with each other at some point during the Cardassian occupation. There's no subtext. Like, we get pretty explicit explanations. We get explicit detail of their sexual encounters with each other later on. But whatever happened didn't end particularly well, and this is going to be a story about Quark trying to get the love of his life back.
I want to talk about Cardassian makeup real quick because it started rough with these guys looking like fried chicken back in Next Gen. And they've moved away from like that silly putty peach color to this gray. What did you say you thought that the Cardassians were supposed to invoke lizards?
Correct. There's a scaly reptilian element to them.
I think this is an interesting episode because we're seeing more and more of Cardassian civilians. Cardassian military are always in the same breastplate armor. And as far as the presentation of the women go, I think they do a nice job making it clear that these are attractive people and still highlighting gross alien features in a way that feels very authentic.
Yeah,
right?
no, it's to the point where there was, I mean, I hate to put it this way, but they put detail into her cleavage.
It's gross.
With the ridges, and it is gross, but it's like, first, visually noticeable. You're supposed to notice. They put her in the plunging neckline specifically so they could do that. But, like, okay, this isn't supposed to be attractive to humans, I guess, on purpose, right? But the whole point is that Quark is attracted to her. Like, they're aliens. They don't think the way necessarily people do. And maybe part of the lingering resentment between Cardassians and humans is that they kind of do look like lizards, and humans respond to that in a way that they would respond differently to other humanoid creatures that don't have those kinds of elements to them.
I like the attention of detail to the physiology. And this is stuff that you never really saw out of Next Gen in any significant way, like touching the prosthetics. When she finally lets her guard down, and I guess we have to have a talk, like if it's authentic or if she's kind of stringing Quark along to get what she needs by the end. But like when they're embracing, you see Quark running his fingers along that shoulder
Yeah, the
neckline,
neck ridges. Yeah.
and he's like playing with the scales a little bit, and she's taking pleasure from it. And
And
like that's
she's rubbing his ear. Like it was a really good scene of intimacy between the two of them, because it communicated exactly what you wanted to, which is these are pleasurable acts for. We know that for ears for Ferengi in detail. Now we know that about apparently neck ridges for Cardassians, and they're very close and intimate with each other because they feel comfortable doing that with each other. It's just perfect.
and it's again Star Trek at the height of its power. This is season 2. This is season 7 Next Gen. We've got generations coming down the pipeline. Like the Berman era is at the peak of its power, and really Star Trek as a whole is at the peak of its power. The
Correct.
prosthetics game that they are able to bring in on Deep Space Nine, which is a very robust game, right? You got Packlet all over the place and all these other creatures in the background. So this is a well-used makeup department, and their prosthetics game is strong enough where you can actually have actors over there touching and tugging on these fake pieces of their body without them falling apart, and contrast that to like, season 1, season 2, Next Gen, where it's guys with cotton swabs and Elmer's glue to their face for aged makeup trying to get us to suspend disbelief. So
it's an interesting point about the makeup, because you're mentioning it. The reason they went with the sort of touching rather than a lot of kissing is apparently their makeup would smudge when they kissed each other, and so they had to like touch it up every time they had to do one of those takes. So they pivoted a little bit, and it worked out as a consequence.
Here, I thought this girl didn't want to put her face around a garbage disposal of teeth.
It's like a piranha, and also, you bring up the makeup department and like the diversity of alien life on Deep Space Nine. We didn't mention it when we did Playing God last week, but like they had another scene at the Klingon restaurant with the big Klingon chef who was singing like a Klingon love song that Dax had taught her, which was a great moment, right? Like the Dax taught the chef like a Klingon song that no one knew because lived 7 lifetimes. He knows things that she doesn't knows things people wouldn't know. And again, like you've got a strong enough makeup department that like, we're going to do a scene in the Klingon restaurant. Quick, put some giant man in full Klingon makeup real quick.
Yeah, put him
just
in that
for like one
gear.
shot, It's a lot of time just for one scene.
Also, shout out to her 2 students, the other guy, Anwar, or whatever his name was, who appears to be cosplaying Kevin Nealon.
Yeah, these two have the personality of I don't know.
They're not the focus, that's for sure.
They're not the focus of this episode. They are in the background to be present. I don't know, like to be MacGuffins in a way.
So they show up. They're not happy about being there. It's not clear if they sought Deep Space Nine out or if that was just the one safe harbor. Like, how far away is Cardassia from Bajor?
Not terribly far. I mean, it was a system right on the border with the Cardassian Union that they annexed. So the distance is not terribly far.
So they've limped across lines. Kira is real unhappy to see Cardassians. They go, all right, tractor beam them over to this cargo bay, which is interesting. They put them on a cargo bay dock instead of a normal one. And Kira stays up in the bridge, or the ops. And normally she seems real keen to crawl up the ass of any sort of Cardassian plot. This one, she's real chill. Obviously, it's not her episode, so they don't need her, and she doesn't fit in huge. But as far as continuity goes, I'm surprised she's as hands-off on this thing as she is.
They make their way into the promenade after O'Brien goes to start fixing the ship, which they claim that was hit by meteors. And we get the scene where they encounter Quark right before the end of the teaser. And then we are picking up right where we left off when the first act starts. And, they're making very, very clear that these two were involved with each other and that she is not happy to see him and he is overjoyed to see her. He eventually cons them into coming to the bar for a drink, something called a Sumerian sunset, which is some drink where you hit the glass and it shimmers like a sunset, and it's definitely a move that he has developed as a bartender over time.
It's a deal closer.
The real plot starts when Bashir and Garak, who are having lunch, where Garak essentially spells out his life history in a way that Bashir just dismisses for the sake of the audience, shows up and sees the three of them and politely nods to them and leaves. And then they start to panic of like, I didn't know there were more Cardassians here. This is very bad for us. And this is where I think the most interesting subplot really injects itself, which is Garak and the choices that he is making as he's living on Deep Space Nine. It's clear he's spelling out for Bashir, I'm an outcast spy. This confirmed in this episode. He is an outcast and he behaves like a spy. So clearly, this is his story. And the way that Sisko essentially tolerates him as an interlocutor, now knowing this, I find deeply fascinating. Because at this point, there's no plausible deniability anymore that Garak is somebody who is or was in the Obsidian Order and is clearly serving as the eyes and ears of the Cardassian power structure
So
on
real
the
quick, let's
station.
talk that. On Cardassia, we'd already talked, there's a civilian government, there's a military government. Central Command is the White House, the Pentagon.
Central Command is the military leadership, and they have prominence over all of Cardassian society. And the civilian dissident movement is wanting to establish civilian control of the Cardassian state and have the military be subservient to it.
Obsidian Order is a spy bureau. Has Berman era said Obsidian Order yet?
I don't think so.
We know what it is from Seska. I'm guessing that's fleshed out in later Deep Space Nine episodes. So we shouldn't even know what Obsidian Order is. But that is the CIA, essentially, of Central Command, I assume?
Correct. The CIA of Cardassian Union.
He, by the end, appears as though he is spying on behalf of Central Command, because it was up in the air what organization he was ultimately serving. And I'm sure this guy probably serves a couple, but as of this point, we can say one of those names is Central Command. So if I'm reading the situation right, he was in the military to one degree or another, uniformed, I assume. And then during the withdrawal period of Bajor, he was already the tailor, or was he the tailor under Dukat?
So the nature of his exile has not yet been explained, although there is an episode later on in the season that's going to go into depth for this, so I don't want to spoil anything. Yeah. But based on what we know at this point, he's a spy. He's actively spying on behalf of Cardassia, although in an idiosyncratic way. He's not really an antagonist to the Federation, more an interlocutor. And he's in exile. He's not allowed to go back to Cardassia. He's in disfavor for some reason.
He's at odds with Dukat mutually.
Yes, he and Dukat hate each other. And Sisko knows all of this now, right? It was probably clear in the Cardassians episode with the kid. Now it's like, oh, you dimed this out. That's why they're here. And you're here to talk to me, essentially, on their behalf. And I love that Sisko essentially tolerates this as something he can use. He doesn't I'm going to throw this spy in jail. He's like, okay, got it. I understand the game that's being played. You're going to continue to present yourself as a tailor, and you're going to tell me the things that the Cardassian government doesn't want to say to me.
I I'm conflicted because in this case, Garak's not disloyalty, but Garak's treachery to the station has put uh, Cisco in a position where he's going to have to feed Cardassian civilians to a military death, and that's a big deal. I think um,
Well, I think that this is where the unforgivable lack of spackle will come in at the end. In
one
that,
of many.
yeah, like Odo's actions and Garak's actions required some additional context and explanation. Otherwise, this ending is just very sloppy.
Very.
But before you get to that ending, I just love that Garak's position and where he puts himself in this is not really trying to be antagonistic towards anyone so much as like the way that he warns Quark. Right? When Quark comes to Garak in the aftermath of some of this coming to light, and him knowing that Garak knows that they're there, and they have this very cool veiled conversation where they substitute fashion for politics, and Garak explaining to Quark, like, you should probably not be involved with this woman. She has decided to insert herself into a fashionable form of politics, and this is a dangerous game that gets played. And when people fall out of fashion, they get killed. And if you're there next to her, you're going to get killed too. So you should probably take a pass on this. It's he's
So
not trying. He's not antagonistic towards Quark. It's like, actually, I'm telling you freely, like, you should just let this happen. Like, don't don't sully yourself by being in the blast radius of what's about to occur. In the same way, like, he essentially arranges for there to be a prisoner exchange rather than simple execution for the dissidents. He makes a point, is like, you shouldn't martyr them. We should exchange them for Bajoran prisoners that we have, and then bring them back to Cardassia and put them on trial for crimes. He's taking a position that's not entirely evil, but more just pragmatic. And it's interesting. It's what makes him a very cool character on the show.
I, how much of this episode could you've trimmed fat off of? I don't think a lot, because it would have robbed Quark of humanizing romance plot that was
Yeah.
appreciated.
Yeah, that's what you'd have to cut. Yeah, I don't want you to cut any of that.
But as part of the conversation between Cisco and Garak, I could have used a point where Garak does say, like, I get you're not happy about what happened here, but I think you can find that, my services as a tailor here. Basically, your death row Cisco, you should realize the value of having me as this intermediary that you're not going to have access to otherwise, and that kind of talk them off. Certainly not the biggest problem or lack of spackling in this episode. Also, Cisco's a smart guy. He's playing dirty games already, so he should be able to see
And this is why I'm spending so much time talking about it, is this is the first example of Cisco knowing Quark is capable, or not Quark. This is the first time Cisco knows Garak is capable of some deep game, and this comes up a lot. Probably the best episode of Deep Space Nine is about exactly the two of them getting into business together, and it leads up to him, like, finally, like, I know I can do this because I've run into this fucking guy doing this so long, right?
Yeah.
And so it's the first piece of a puzzle that gets slowly built over the course of 7 seasons, and this is where, like, you Deep Space Nine's continuity is just so good.
Back to the amount of detail they put in on the Cardassians and, like, her enjoying Quark's touch down these scaled ridges of her shoulders. The scene between Garak and Quark in his shop, and the double talk in the context, again, where they're having this political warning in the form of fashion advice. I think that is by far the longest form example of a metaphorical conversation like that, without them breaking or, like, really making it super obvious of what they're like.
Right at
Deep
the
Space
end,
Nine really, it goes on so long. I don't think that the real talk at the end taints the amount of time that they spent playing the game on the front end. And this is a
I
busy
was going to
episode.
say exactly the same thing. It's like they right at the end they clue. It's like if someone didn't get it, they make sure they got it. But for the majority of it, it's very subtle. And like you said, it's very unlike Trek to be quite that subtle.
And I think that them dropping the game and Quark speaking in plain text is important because it's Quark becoming overwhelmed and emotional and unable to keep basically him failing at his poker face breaking.
Right.
Which this isn't a guy who you would think who's gambling every single episode who should have a flimsy poker face. He's that bent out of shape about the idea that the love of his life might be harmed, where he's saying out there, if anybody hurts her, I will take direct action. It's Deep Space Nine giving crazy respect to their viewer audience.
Yeah.
And spoon feeding them and just letting scenes be good at the risk of some dummies not able to follow along. And I think that's awesome.
It is awesome. And Armin Shimmerman and Andrew Robinson are fucking phenomenal in that scene too, because they know the game that they're playing with each other. And the way that they're able to play off each other is excellent. In fact, exactly, starting with you've never been here before, right? Like this is the first you've come to me for the first time, Mr. Quark, right? Like there's a very much like at last the local criminal element has decided that he wants to play games with me.
Imagine you're Kate Mulgrew or Robert Duncan McNeil, and they're like, "Hey, there's a new Star Trek coming out. You wanna go for this thing?" And you're like, "Well, let me check out Star Trek." And you start watching Deep Space, and you're like, "Man, this is fucking great. These are gonna be such juicy scripts with such great dialogue. I can't wait to be a part of this." And then you get into Voyager, and it's just a fucking trash shit show of like shallow dialogue.
Narrowly written, terrible show. Yeah.
What a bait and swap that'd be. So, real quick, Garak was a tailor under Ducat or no?
I don't know if it's a spoiler to say, so I'm not going to say.
All right, that's fine.
So the end result after some of these scenes where Garak warns Quark, the Cardassians show up, Garak then talks to Sisko directly, and he becomes very aware that Garak is speaking as an intermediary. We
real quick, this is the second time now that Cardassian warships have shown up and aimed guns at Deep Space Nine, as well as other aliens showing up and aiming guns at Deep Space Nine. When does the Federation send out the extra guns? When do they get
actually? If the beginning of season 3, a certain extra guns show up.
Per my last email, I am getting guns pulled on me left and right, and all I have is 2 phasers, 3 torpedoes, and 3 runabouts. Maybe,
bro. When we get to the season 3 premiere, the search, there are so many things that happen that are going to trigger every part of your brain as to the level of not fucking around that Sisko manages to convince Starfleet Command of. Like, it's time. They blew up the Odyssey. We gotta get on this.
Yeah.
There is a MacGuffin in the episode that's not the 2 Cardassian kids, and it's that apparently Quark got his hands on something that is hyper illegal in both Bajoran space and Federation space, and that is a cloaking device. To the point where apparently you can spend decades in jail for having it. And Odo shows up and is like, "I heard you have one." He's like, "I don't have one." Yeah, he's fucking got one. It's not a great one. Apparently it only lasts about 15 minutes. But that's long enough to get slipped by this Cardassian warship. And Quark wants to let's make a deal. They're after the 2 young guns as dissidents. I'll give them the Quark cloaking device. They can skedaddle on their shuttle. And in exchange, the love of his life stays on the station with him. That's what he wants to do. And he tries to deploy this strategy to the professor. And unfortunately for Quark, it goes so poorly that he has a revisit from the Kablamo device and gets blown across on the lowest setting. He gets shot in the chest and blown over a fucking couch onto the floor.
Listen, he's got scar tissue, all right? It might have been the lightest setting of stun, but you're shooting a guy who just got hit by a Kablamo gun. This might be the most I've seen one side character get shot in a single season.
I just like the idea that somehow Ferengi are weak to phaser blasts to the chest. Like, even at the lowest setting, they just like double over and fly back 6 feet. It's like a racial weakness.
Yeah, but he's also got really high fort saves on other things.
It's true. Yeah, it's
So
just bad luck. You just
it's
probably got hit where his scar tissue is.
it's a
I
min
like that.
max sheet. Uh,
But nothing like, shooting your lover to like suddenly start making out with him on the ground. I mean, brings people together. Worth it, as they say.
it's like the electric wand play. They're a kinky species, and with the lack of her proper tools, are just resorting to light phaser fire.
Using ray guns. It's not long after they have their.
I like that the fucking cloaking device is a Nerf football.
It's like a prop. Apparently, they use a couple different times
I'm
over
sure.
like the rest of Trek. But yeah,
It's Data's brain at some point too.
Little metal thing.
Can you imagine if Quark had a Betazoid? How unstoppable the security department would be over there between him being able to read body language and just.
Oh, you mean Odo? Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, Odo. Maybe he keeps the Beta Zeds away because he doesn't ultimately want to beat Quark.
Well, he knows how dangerous it can be. One of them has the hots for him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Got to keep them all away. He's just
Don't worry,
racist as a whole.
she shows back up every now and again to remind you how terrible having a telepath around would be. So the twist comes in that scene when Odo shows up, Quark stashing his cloaking device under the table. It's like, hope he doesn't see this illegal technological device.
Hope he doesn't take 3 steps to the left.
And arrests the professor. So this is where Sisko comes in and lays the bad news, which is, well, I am in Bajoran space, and the Bajorans don't give a fuck about Cardassians, but they do give a fuck about getting Bajorans back. And apparently there's going to be a prisoner swap, and they're on their way. So we're turning you over for 6 Bajorans.
Let's talk
That's
about
the way it
this.
is.
First of all, as I'm looking at the memory alpha, there's no story arcs on here, and I really think that there should be a story arc through the memory alpha for Deep Space Nine. That is, the provisional government fucking sucks.
It would be like part 6 of 28.
They go out of their way, Sisko and Odo, to shit on the provisional government for taking actions that they're very clearly against. Because when Garak comes up to Sisko is they have not done anything wrong. I'm not giving these guys to the military. My O'Brien has told me that you do not want to be a prisoner over there.
Yeah, a lot of torture.
I don't have any good grounds to let these guys go on, and I'm willing to, which is classic Star Trek captain, we can get into a space fight because I'm not going to give you the innocent people I've got. So these shitbags over in the provisional government, like, yeah, we're going to trade it. The trade itself, what was the opening of this season?
The Siege?
The Siege.
Yeah, the Bajoran trilogy.
Or I guess it would have been the last, where they rescue Lee Nallis.
Yeah, right? The very first part of that trilogy, yeah.
They fly out to what we are told is an illegal prison camp that should not exist. So when they spring everybody out of there, all the Cardassians can go, oh my gosh, we didn't know that was there. That shouldn't have been there. Please keep everybody in here. You can have the rest of them too. So the fact they've got prisoners of war, 6 of them, like, what do you mean you have 6 prisoners of war? You shouldn't have any. Just give it to us for free. Like, there should be no trading here. And also, in the wake of all this, by the end, did the Cardassians just say, okay, well, since we didn't get our guys, you're not getting these guys. They're going back to the prison camps that don't exist.
This is where an unforgivable lack of spackle comes in.
It is so bad.
So let's talk about the bad part. We talked about the good parts of this episode, I think, well enough. The Garak background is good. The Quark stuff is great. The love story is great. Let's not forget, they fell in love because Quark apparently smuggles food to the Bajorans during the occupation.
Which we knew about from Tarek Noor, right?
Yeah, I think an episode was named different, but the one where we did the Tarek Noor stuff, the noir detective story about the murder. And we knew he was willing to kind of dip his toes into altruism on behalf of the Bajorans, but
for a
Evidently,
price.
it wasn't a one-time deal. This is something he did pretty regularly.
He also dipped his fingers into the Cardassian coin purse and fell out of favor with his girlfriend because he got her password to her email and PayPal'd himself a lot of money on the company card. There's also a great scene in there where we really get real talk out of Garak, where Gull, I'm gonna die, shows up to talk shit.
Called Disposable guy.
Yeah, Gull Dispose shows up and says, "Oh, you dirty rat! Look at you here in your little shitty tailor shop. I'm a Gull. We clearly have bad blood. I'm here to rub my dick on your face, mock you for the great height that you seem to have fallen from, and tell you that this is your chance to get out of this exile that you've been stuck here. It's apparently well known whatever Garak used to be and what he has been reduced to now, humiliatingly. And we want you to kill these guys before they have a chance to leave the station. And if you do that, you get to come home. Isn't that a great deal?"
Which Garak is clearly hesitant to do, but ultimately decides, well, I'm not that good a guy, right? He's not Quark. Quark is a good guy. Quark's probably unwilling to murder for personal gain, but Garak is. Garak is willing to do that, and he's given the offer. So
I do like, though, he is hesitant to it because it's a bad idea. And he puts, and I'm sure at a certain level, like, he's not casually murdering people. There needs to be enough motivation. So set that aside. The real pushback from him with Gull Disposable is like, this is bad politically, and it is not going to play out well to the best interests of Cardassia if we murder them on the station. And as you say, make them into martyrs. And why are we being stupid here? And the guy's like, fuck you, I'm a jock, and you're going to do this if you want to get out of here. And then Garak's like, well, we'll see. Let me go see if I can't find a little hidey hole.
So there's one more good scene left in this episode, and is when Quark goes to Odo and essentially just begs for him to help. He throws himself at him to say, like, I will literally debase myself. I will dime out every single criminal I know. I will. He's on his knees at one point to say, like, I love this woman and I don't want her to die. And like, you are the one that's her jailer. You can help me.
Never at any point, like, everything that Quark does is centered around, what can I give you? What am I willing to sacrifice? What does she mean to me? But he never invokes, like, what they are doing is wrong. Like, it doesn't even occur to him to use that as reasoning.
Well, I mean, it's so culturally specific to him. He's negotiating, right? He's offering everything he can possibly offer. That's probably a considerable sign of respect on his part, and to the point where he has this great line where he just eviscerates Odo, and how, like, I love her. Like, you've never experienced anything like this. How could you possibly, right? How could you possibly understand how I feel? He's Odo, like, responds to that positively, is to say, like, I'm going to let you keep going because I believe you. It's a great moment between the two of them where he understands that he actually cares about her, and he's already made his decision that he's going to find a way to let her go, but he's going to let him, like, go off for a while. He's enjoying watching him have to, like, reckon with his emotions.
Yeah, meanwhile, like, he's got this pad and he's reading, like, Animal Farm or something that O'Brien lent him.
It was a detective story of some kind. It was some sort of like
Is it?
old world detective fiction.
Shame on them for not using Dixon Hill.
Obviously.
I wonder if there's, like, royalties, and if it's a Tom Paris, Nick
Locarno type of situation, yeah.
He can't involve Dixon Hill.
It looks like Tom Paris. I don't see it. That is the best line from that entire show, in my opinion.
It's a high bar, too. So Odo goes, I'm not going to let this deal go through. Right. I disagree with it. I don't care how many Bajorans think they're about to get a taste of freedom after being in their torture camps. I'm going to let these three people go in the name of justice. And I think this is the first time he's really tried to conceptualize whatever morality he's working on. I don't know if I necessarily buy that this fits what we've seen out of him. We have seen him B, very unlawful. I don't know if we've seen him cite justice as his ultimate motivation. But that's what he's using here. It's good enough for Quark. They go over, they drop the force field, and it's, well, how are we going to get him out of here, Quark? And for a second there, I was like, man, is Odo about to be so fucking dirty? He's going to use these people as leverage to get Quark to out himself on the cloak just to like bust Quark, which I think is the real Odo move here. But, oh, you got me, Odo. I do have a super illegal cloaking device.
Cloaking device.
Oh, you son of a bitch, you got me good. All right, we'll install it. We're going to let him go. Cisco is nowhere near any of this, so it's not clear.
Yeah, so this is where the unforgivable lack of spackle becomes actually damaging to the episode. Here are the things that happen that don't have an explanation and absolutely require one. One, Odo unilaterally decides to let these prisoners go and reject the prisoner exchange with no input whatsoever from Cisco, nor the Bajoran government, and no consequences for this action are ever contemplated at any point. Like, he just does it, and then there's no follow-up on the fact that there was Bajoran prisoners who are going to be exchanged, and now they're not. Like, they don't address it at all in a single scrap of dialogue. Unforgivable.
No member of the provisional government goes, okay, Odo, you are now going to talk to these prisoners' family and tell them why their dad is not coming home.
Or how about this? Odo, you're fired. You know, like...
I'm sorry. I'm looking at your personnel file here about rejecting what the government said on this prisoner trade, and I see here 3 pages back, you turned into a rampaging rock monster and tried to kill one of our scientists who was your dad. And also caused about $2 million worth of highly sensitive lab equipment damages. Yeah, pack up your bucket and go, buddy.
Precisely, right? Like, so none of this is addressed. Second, they in no way, shape, or form explain, like, okay, given the cloaking devices, I guess it works, right? Like, they just go. There's no, like, they got away. There's no follow-up from the Cardassians. We don't hear about, like, if they're angry. One of their gulls gets shot, evaporated in the cargo bay by Garak. Just eliminated. There's no follow-up from the Cardassians about that either. Is it that they decided to let the part, like, did they get embarrassed and they just kind of let the fucking prisoners go so no one talks about how their guy got, like, annihilated?
Here's the deal. This guy's an asshole. Nobody likes him. They sent him out specifically knowing that there was a high chance that whoever set foot on that station is just never going to come home, and that was an acceptable loss.
Like, I dare say, will definitely be the garbage man to go to this man.
I dare say this might actually be the true plot of this episode, is how do we get rid of this fucking gull? Send him to Deep Space Nine, because we know he is not coming back home. Kira Nerys is over there. This guy is not coming home alive.
And they don't explain why he's on the station. Is he the captain of the ship that's there? Is he, like, attached to it? He doesn't have any fucking scenes with anyone other than Garak.
Does the ship know he's there, or did he fly over on an Uber?
Precisely.
So this Galore class warship, A, doesn't get the people they were sent there to get. B, they lose a captain in the process. C, they were pulling guns on the Federation. That never really gets de-escalated. Like, okay. And we're not even done yet, because now we start getting into Garak, and this is a hard one for me. Like, walk me through he steps out of the airlock. Surprise, motherfuckers. You thought you were getting away, but I'm here to execute you, and I'm ready to execute you. And Quark's trying to, like, reason and wheel and deal, and they're like, hey, we represent a better tomorrow, and Garak's kind of, like, not fundamentally rejecting what they're saying, but he's sticking to his guns in that he wants to get the fuck out of there, and they're the key, right?
Correct. Yeah, he's like, I agree. I don't want to be doing this, but I want to go home. And it means killing all of you, so I'm going to do that.
I'm going to do that. And then Gull Disposable steps out from behind some fucking trash cans. He's like, I'm here. And I'm going to needlessly antagonize a situation that's already going swimmingly. And what does he say? His fatal flaw is, like, Do you really think that killing these people is going to actually get you off the hook, Garak, you dummy? And that's what he gets vaporized for, presumably.
Doesn't he take Quark's gun, but not Garak's too? Like, he comes out, he needlessly antagonizes Garak, the man who is going to about to assassinate these people on his behalf, takes Quark's gun that Garak had taken from Quark from him,
No,
but not Garak's gun.
Garak
And
has
so,
two guns. Garak
yeah,
has Quark's gun. He takes
correct.
Garak's gun, and I listen. Garak's a slippery guy. I can totally see him like putting his left hand down and like hiding the extra gun before Gold Disposable, who's so fucking stupid. Like, again, why get Garak involved in any of this if this guy's just going to ambush everybody anyways? Unless he was going to be like, you're going to kill them, and then I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to be done with all of this. Like, that'd be a great reason for Garak to be like, fuck it, I'm going to kill you first.
Instead, it's like it's set up specifically so that Garak has a clean out to just be like, well, I guess you guys can just go because I'm not getting anything out of it. Right. Like, and it comes off as sloppy instead of character building, right? Like, they need to get to a part here where Garak doesn't kill him, even though we have established that Garak really wants to go home and he's under the distinct impression that he will if he does this. And like you said, if it's a circumstance by which he figures out that he's getting set up and then decides not to go through with it, and then Gull Disposable shows up to kill all of them and he double crosses him and is like, I fucking knew that guy didn't have the fucking pull to get me back home, and that's why I knew this was all bullshit.
Here,
So I exposed him and all of that. Like, that worked. Instead they just it just shows up to be a cartoon villain.
Gold Disposable needed to be a bad faith actor who wanted those people dead stupidly and reveals as much of like, no, I lied to you, Garak. You're not getting a ride home. I just wanted these guys dead because the prisoner exchange is stupid and I'm smarter than whatever it was that you wanted. And then Garrick's like, oh, I got played. You're going to die now. I'm going to let these people go because whatever. So they presumably just the whole ship disappears while it's docked.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cardassians have never tangled with the Romulans or the Klingons and have no experience looking for chemtrails or however you fucking find cloak ships. And are cool to just be like, well, hey, sorry, Cisco, I guess we're just going to leave now because that ship disappeared. By the way, have you seen Gull Disposable? You haven't? Good. All right, well, whatever you do, don't take his ashes and throw him out the airlock because definitely I'm not telling you fuck that guy. Nobody from Bajor ever calls to say, hey, what's going on with this prisoner transport? We got like a whole CNN event, like news junket
we're all
ready.
set. We're going to reunite with their families. They're all like, they're coming to the station. Like the transport with the Bajoran families. They're coming to the station. When's they're gone? The captain of the Cardassian ship's gone? Everything's blown up?
Super illegal cloak that's worth 16 years in jail. We're not pursuing. You don't have your runabouts looking?
What is happening at this Doom level? What is going on? Yeah, so like Garak gets this free out to just be like, all right, let's go, I guess, because I'm not profiting from this anymore, and I'm not like a cold-hearted murderer for no reason.
Yeah.
Which is just the worst way to do it. And you get the last heartfelt farewell.
The line of the show right here. Because the students have already, Tom Nealon's already run off with his sister onto the ship and they're ready to cloak and get out of there. And Quark's there with this lady who, what's your verdict on her? Did she play him or do you think she genuinely loved him?
I think that she genuinely loves him because she could have just shot him and taken the cloaking device. Like, stunned him, was right there. That was the plan, right?
I have more faith that these Cardassians can think a couple steps until it's all ultimately disrupted by the end of this, where the Galore class warship flies off Sans or a gull. She goes, listen, I can't be with you because, we don't want to have a cast that big, and good love interests are never allowed to stick around, especially for you. Shout out, Pell. So I'm going to leave and you're going to stay because I'm going into a dangerous situation. This political movement, maybe a terrorist movement. This is not your fight. And I really like too Quark's not manipulation, but like his talk to her, like, you started this movement. It's not your responsibility to see it through to the end. Are you saying that without you, the entire movement's going to fall apart? Because what he's saying is, if you are integral, then this movement doesn't have the legs to stand on its own. Like, what a great negotiating tactic that was.
It was.
Because she gets pissed. She's like, it can stand on its own. He's like, well, then fucking back off. Be happy. You're allowed to be. If you don't need to be there, then you should be here
Stop
with me.
risking your life doing something stupid if you don't need to do it anymore.
You already started it. But she goes, listen, I'm going to see this thing out to the end. It's not your fight. I need to know that you're here on this suborbital doom station where I know that you are quote unquote safe. And Quark need to be like, lady, let me tell you how many times my life has been in danger the past 14 days.
There was almost a black hole or a universe in this that expanded and blew this place up, like in this pay period, lady.
And that was chill. That wasn't even a malicious effort on behalf of someone else to like fuck us. Like, I got shot with the gun that threw me 2 football fields back because I looked in a box. My brother has tried to kill me 3 times. I loved him talking about how he was going to give the bar. Oh, what about your bar? I'll give it to my brother. He'll have it run into the ground by the end of the week, but I don't care.
It was a great moment for him to demonstrate that he really did care about her. Like, yes, this thing that I possess, that's my most valuable possession. I will literally give it away if I can go with you.
I can't take this episode where I'm sitting here praising them for putting the attention of detail of having Quark run his fingers down her scales and her eliciting a pleasure response. And that level of like thoughtfulness and respect that they're showing the audience the tailor shop double talk of politics and just like this deep, rich, textured plot that they're rolling out. And then at the end, the unforgivable list of sins that they're committing in terms of like repercussions and the complete lack thereof. I got to go at this episode like good, trending towards meh because it gets so fucking sloppy at the end. But as a character piece for Quark and as for Garak, it's great. But man, this is a sloppy fucking episode.
It is actually a circumstance where the sum of the parts is actually less than the parts themselves because of the sloppiness, right? Like, there are individual scenes and individual moments in this episode that are spectacularly done, well done character building, lore building elements. And then the actual episode that those scenes are in is not particularly well constructed and doesn't land the plane. And I will take that, though. I will take that 100 times out of 100 over a coherent episode of shit, you know?
Yes. And that's, again, the way that you and I watch this as nerds, where we can say, okay, cool, here's a fucking trash episode, but I know about the time that Tuvok prayed his emotions away. Like, this thing's a gold mine of great stuff to the point where this should be a strong enough contender to win weakest shit awards. And I'm not going to put it in the consideration because there's so much other gold knocking around in here.
I'm completely with you. And especially on the point you made about us as nerds loving the parts of this that build the continuity and the rich texture of the characters themselves, and valuing that over a single episode of 1 out of 26 over the season being, perfectly delivered as a coherent story. So that's the serialized nature of the show versus the episodic nature of the show. And it just goes to demonstrate that when you serialize your television show, you can have individual episodes that are bad, but still you want to watch them because there's elements of them that kind of
provide value.
You provide value and keep you interested. So, and that's what was Voyager's problem, is that they didn't have that. And so if the episode wasn't good, there was no reason to watch it. And this didn't work out super great, but there's plenty of reason to watch it. So there's a lesson in that.
Next one coming up.
Ooh, so I don't want you to read this intro if you haven't already.
This is going to be season 2, episode 19, Blood Oath, and there's a picture in here of a Klingon who has a Wolverine haircut.
Yes. So I I don't want you to be spoiled too much in the episode. The intro kind of says too much. I'll just
All
read the
right.
first sentence.
Let's just skip the whole thing so I can go in cold.
Sure. This is probably top tier Deep Space Nine material right here.
No.
I would say this is my amongst the many good episodes that season 2 ends on. This might be my favorite, although it has some pretty strict competition with the Maquis Part 1 and 2, The Wire. I mean, everything at this point forward, it's bangers.
Let me say
But
something real quick. I've been watching season 2 of Severance is out, which is 10 out of 10 perfect TV. And there's been a couple TV shows that I've watched with my wife, just personal watching, not podcast watching. They're just fucking amazing and great, Better Call Saul and some of the other stuff over the past 7 years we've been doing this.
yeah,
And a lot of times the Star Trek episodes, the Enterprise and the fucking Voyager episodes Picard stand out as such stinkers compared to the leisure stuff we're watching. And as I've been going through these Severance episodes, which I love, and they're just amazing, just the fucking Deep Space Nine's hanging in there with the 2025 programming effortlessly.
and the crazy part is that this season 2 that we've gone through so far is like the shitty mid part of Deep Space Nine. I don't try not to oversell it, but this season literally ends with 7 good episodes in a row. The next 7 episodes, in my opinion, are probably better than 99% of anything that we have watched over the past 7 years. And this isn't even the best part of Deep Space Nine. So, and Blood Oath, to me, this episode represents Deep Space Nine really taking the idea of its continuity and holding on to it for dear life and deciding to do some wild shit and cool ideas. And they use that as a template moving forward. There are characters for this episode you would not expect to become recurring characters in the future, yet they do.
Is like Stevie watching these with you?
Funny you should mention that. We were talking about this episode while we were at the gym because you mentioned it was like romantic, had a heavy romantic focus and Quark and all that. And she tried watching some of it with me, and I'm trying to warm her back up because it was, there was a lot of just stuff that just doesn't interest her. And I was like, it's getting to the part where you might want to start watching with me. And she's more interested now, I think.
I'm trying to get my wife to watch too. And I'm like, listen, man, you really like Battlestar Galactica. There's this Ron Moore influence there. And I'm telling you, like, this is legit good stuff. And I feel like the episodes I've been able to like finagle her into, they haven't been like the Bard burner ones. And I don't know, man. Like, I'm curious where the female viewership was on this thing through. Obviously, Voyager fucking killed. Like, and I saw from our own listener fan participation, like there were a lot of women into Voyager, and we lost a lot of them through Enterprise.
We did.
The women listeners that we've got out there that are still participating are very fond of Deep Space Nine, but like overall, it's not clicking in the same ways. And I mean, this is great TV, and I'm having a real hard time dragging my wife into it. So just like, what's
this next episode might be interesting for Casey maybe to sink her teeth into, because it is a Dax episode in a way that's very, there's a deep game being played. There's a lot to enjoy.
All right.
So Blood Oath is next. Thank you so much for listening to Feature Please. We appreciate you. If you are interested in supporting the show, you can do so on Patreon, www.patreon.com/Feature Please. We just recently put out Star Trek V as a movie review there for our patrons, and Star Trek VI will follow shortly. We're going to get that in before the end of this season, I presume. Sorry, Peter, I'm volunteering you to do that. And $3 a month helps pay for the bills. We have some exclusive stuff up there that we'll never let see the light of day. Our review of the Unification short from earlier this year. Also our review of Tank Girl, a meme that ended up nearly destroying our souls. And we would appreciate anything that you would be willing to do to help us out. See you next week.